home of the greatest underrated show on the World Wide Web. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. And today, like always, we're going to be digging into the topics to keep you talking and the talk that keeps you thinking. Gotta definitely bring in my guy, Mateo, because it's been a long time. Mr. Mateo, where you at?
I'm right here. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Hey, doing good, man. Doing good. This is a Sunday afternoon social. You know, usually we don't come in this early on a Sunday, but we're going to go ahead and talk about Dr. Stephen Greer's new documentary called UFO Endgame to Disclosure, and then some of the things that he has going on right now. A lot of people have their opinions on Dr. Stephen Greer, and you know, there's definitely some good things that he does and that he has meant to this disclosure movement. Actually, I believe the movement that he has is called Disclosure Project, which originally he did back in 2001, and I guess next month he's doing Disclosure Project 2.0, and this is the kind of thing that we like to see people in this community doing, as far as like garnering a place for the public to come together and stand in front of the government to, or at least try to get their attention on these topics that matter. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I mean, you can love the guy, you can hate the guy, it doesn't matter. He's clearly pushing the ball down the field in the right direction in all of our behalves. You know, controversy and motivations aside, it helps the cause regardless.
Yeah, so without any further delay, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into the show. It's not going to be too long today. Here we go. All right. So just like we said, disclosure news today, really not much going on out there in the world of ufology. Nothing new really to report. So instead, we're just going to look at a couple things today. We're going to definitely get into Dr. Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project 2.0. We're going to actually do a small, simple review of the documentary. Obviously, we won't be able to show any footage here. No spoilers as well. But we're going to talk about some of the points that they covered, some of the things they brought up, and kind of talk to that. And I would definitely recommend that you guys go ahead and go rent it. You know, I've watched it a couple times. You can get it Amazon Prime. We'll have the link in the description. Now, did you get a chance to watch this, Mateo?
Yes, indeed. I watched it like a couple times, just so that I could be, well versed for our discussion here on the show. But I probably would have rented it anyway since it's new, and I've rented and reviewed Dr. Greer's previous stuff in the past and all of his efforts in this regard. So, like I said, he's pushing in the right direction. He helps the cause. So,
right.
I think it was a worthy watch. I enjoyed it, and it gives a little bit of a different perspective in a few areas that I may not totally agree with, and others may or may not agree with either. But it's good. That's why we're here. We're here to break it down.
And here's what I thought about this actually as I was watching it, because and I've said this before, and this applies to pretty much everyone in ufology. There's going to be things you're not going to like everything or agree with everything that a person says.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as this movement goes, what should be looked at is, what did that person do to further the conversation or to further
Exactly.
our progression towards humanity? And we could talk about people all across the board, the Corbells, the Luelizondos, all these people in ufology that people have an issue with, but I can point out things that they've done to further the conversation. I think that's the most important thing, and the thing that should always be focused on. So just kind of starting out with that.
And that's our prime directive here. As we've said time and time again, your channel, Rob, we're not here to judge anybody or to speak badly about anybody. Yes, there's different camps here and there. We're out, we do our best to stay outside of that. And because, as you just pointed out, everyone is contributing to the same cause, directly, indirectly, and any of the criticisms that come up and who's good and who's bad and all of that, we steer clear of. I don't like to see that done by others either, although it does happen a little too often, and even happened in this video that we were about to review. But, you know, we have to leave that. We all have to try to learn to leave that aside and take the good stuff that everybody's giving, even if you don't necessarily agree with them.
Exactly. So first off, in disclosure news, we're going to go ahead and actually I have this James Fox video queued up. And it was just a fun video, some revelation that he dropped. He actually was on the Impulsive podcast, I want to say like 2 years ago. And he told a story about a guy that he had came across back in 1995 that had a VHS videotape of a UFO that he swore was super authentic. Fox viewed it, was amazed at what he saw. And so this conversation came up again, actually, recently on the Joe Rogan podcast when James Fox appeared there. And he kind of goes more into detail about what happened. And a guy named Logan Paul, social media influencer Logan Paul of the Paul brothers, kind of got involved, and there was 100K involved and all sorts of things. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. Give me just a second, and here we go.
I get a phone call from Chuck Clark, and I'm back at home in Northern California, and this is kind of a long way away. And he goes, James, I got something you need to see. I said, okay, well, what is it? I can't tell you, but your jaw's going to hit the floor when you see it. I was like, that good? He goes, oh yeah, that good. I said, I'm canceling all my plans, jumped in my car, and I drove straight through to Rachel, Nevada. I get to his house. This must have been, I'm going to guesstimate 95, 94, 95. Get to his house, and he's got a double wide right near the little alien, and he pops in this VHS tape. I was like, and it was like two guys on the quintessential road trip just to Area 50, you know, the surrounding areas, Rachel and the extraterrestrial lonely highway, and they're goofing off the alien, taking videos of each other, just the typical road trip out to Area 51, right?
Blair Witch Project.
Totally. And then they're goofing off next to the photographs of the alien in the crash disc, and then they're inside the little alien, and I'm like, okay, where's this going? Then all of a sudden, and I saw this with my own eyes, all of a sudden, the car's parked, and it's parked out by the black mailbox in the desert, and it's dusk. The camera is on the armrest between the two seats, and it's slightly cocked, like it's not level. And it's filming the dashboard and the screen, the windshield, and there's two guys in there sounding like, you can't see them, sounding like they're trying to crawl under the seats. I mean, they're freaking out. And then one of them goes, it's over the top of us. It's over the top of us. I'm like, damn, what is this video? Then all of a sudden, the car lights up on the inside, but the source of light is above it. Like if you can imagine, I've never seen anything like this. If you could put a pendulum with a light source above a vehicle, like above the car, like this, but very slow and fluid motion, like rocking back and forth, the shadows and the lights on the inside of the car are doing this really eerily. You've never seen anything like it. I'm looking like, my God, what is going on? And they're very scared. And one kid, who's the younger of the two, is like, I'm getting out. I'm getting out of the car. Stay in the car. It's over the top. But stay in the fucking car. He goes, no, I'm getting out. And he gets out. And he videotapes a disc that was so low you could have hit it with a rock. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, that's what all the witnesses have tried to describe. That's like, if you could imagine the skin on the craft glowing like phosphorus on a beach, That's what it looked like. Like the skin was alive, and it had like a yellowy orange color to it. But you could clearly see it was a disc. I mean, it was not an orb. It was a disc. But the metal lit up like it was alive. I'd never seen anything like it. And it just wobbled like it was unstable, like doing this. And the camera guy goes, "Oh my God." And then something about the batteries, and then boom, it shuts off. I looked over at Chuck Clark. I said, "This is the video everyone's been waiting for." Unbelievable.
How do you know this is real? Because
If it's not real,
all my BS meters are going off right now.
Dude, fair enough. I get it. Fair enough. I saw this video with my own eyes.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's a video, though.
Yeah, it's a video, for sure. No question
And
about
you
it.
know they make fake videos.
Absolutely. It was 1995, and they could have. But why wouldn't... If
1995 is harder. Someone has it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, in fact, if those two boys that shot it are out there, please come forward. Like, please.
How come no one's acquired this?
So I said to Chuck, "Oh my God, this is great. I can use this in my movie." Right? Great. He goes, "Oh no, they're terrified." I said, "Well, look, just put me in touch with the guys. You don't have to like give."
But wait a minute. They're terrified, but they give it to a guy who lives in a trailer?
I'm just telling you.
Do you know what I'm saying, though?
Absolutely.
Hey, I'm really terrified. I don't want this getting out, but I'm going to give it to you.
I get it.
Guy who lives in a trailer.
I get it.
What does this guy do for a living?
He was a former military guy, and he's retired. But
Just a retired
sit
military
with me
guy
for a
on a
minute
trailer.
here.
This guy's a Fed.
So
that
I
he
know.
doesn't even live there.
But no,
he probably put on some fucking
Okay, so the
overalls
story
to hang
gets
out
better.
with you.
The story
is
gets
his name
better.
Ray Epps?
I know, Joe. Believe me, I get it. But the story gets better.
Okay,
so sit
okay.
tight.
Okay.
Because I went on a couple of podcasts and I said, "Screw it, I don't care anymore. I saw this video. I'm going to start talking about it." Chuck Clark said, "If you ask me again after like 10 years or 12 years, I'm never talking to you again." So I was like, I of course asked him again. I said, "I'll give you 30 grand for the video," and he's not talking to me. So I went on like a Concrete podcast, and I went on this guy Julian Dorian's podcast, and I went on a bunch of other podcasts, and I gave the whole story. Let's let somebody else pick up the ball and run with it. I'm just telling you what I saw, okay? I get contacted a couple of years ago by a guy who goes, "I saw that video too." Then another guy contacts me and he goes, I'm a private investigator and I find people. I said, "Well, his name's Chuck Clark. Go to it." So he finds him. Right at that time, I'm going on the Impulsive podcast with Logan Paul, and I tell Logan Paul the story, and he has exactly the same response you have, and I don't blame you. Okay, I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. It was very impressive what I saw. Very impressive. If it was a fake, my God, that was well done. Better, I mean, he should be making movies with Spielberg. So anyway, Logan Paul, he's like, I want to go to this guy's house. I said, "Hey, I got the guy. He's got the information." Logan's like, "This is all behind the scenes." So Logan takes, I put him in touch with this guy, and this guy lives in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it was like Logan Paul takes a Mercedes with a bunch of guys and $100,000 in cash, a big brick. And he goes out to this guy's house in the middle of the desert. And Logan calls me in the middle of nowhere. And he's like, "You sure your contact's legit, dude? My phone doesn't work. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I got $100K cash in my pocket and I can't find this guy." I said, "No, I'm sure he's good, you know?" So Logan goes in there and meets Chuck Clark. And Chuck Clark's like, "Yeah, I got the tape right here." And so he says, "I'll give you 100 grand for it." And the guy says, "No way." And so Logan Paul, reveal this for the first time, Logan Paul has got a button camera on his dress, on his clothes. So Logan Paul's like, "All right, well, this guy doesn't want to, he's going to die with it. So let's get this thing on camera." So Logan's like, "Well, let me see it at least." So Logan like looks at it with this thing and, "Oh, could you show it to me again?" Gets another angle, and then he leaves.
Wow, crazy,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. So when do we get to see the button cam?
Exactly. So that's it's kind of crazy, and I like the fact that Rogan has a skeptical
Oh
opinion
yeah,
on,
that was
you know what I
funny.
mean?
His BS
So
haters were going off. That was great.
exactly.
No, I
So
agree. And then I remember later in that interview they did talk about it's going to be a video of a video, but if Logan Paul ever does choose to reveal it, I don't know. But who's to say?
So with that being said, um, I thought that was fun thing to look at, something we could view. So now let's go ahead and move on to Dr. Stephen Greer's disclosure project and kind of just talk about what's going on there. So what we have is, let's see here. Well, I guess what we can do, go to the next slide here, is discuss this here, which is the UFO Endgame to Disclosure. You can actually get that on Amazon Prime. Like I said, I've watched it a couple times. He has some really good things going on in there. And let's talk about this here, which is the upcoming event that I guess he's throwing in DC on between June 10th and June 12th of this year over at the Marriott National Press Club. So if you remember back in 2001, he actually went ahead and held the original event where he had let me see here where let me see who he
The
had
Disclosure
actually.
Project, I believe it was called.
Yeah, and actually he had a list of people there, and
Yep.
let me see. He had it was Dr. Stephen Greer, Colonel Philip J. Corso. It was John Callahan, who is
Yep.
a former FAA official,
FAA
and
guy.
then Dr. Robert Wood, a former aerospace engineer with McDonnell Douglas. So I guess he's doing this again. And, a lot of things that have been said about Dr. Stephen Greer as far as some of the other things that he's involved in, like the C5, things like that. But I always went back to this, the original disclosure project that he did. I thought that that was what everybody should be doing. Everyone who's involved in this subject should be using that as a guide and as a template to get this conversation moved forward, and so I've always respected him for that. Do you recall the original one that he did?
Yeah, wasn't there one in 2001 and 2013 or 12? He did another one.
2013 was not the actual disclosure
Project. He wasn't.
yeah.
That wasn't him. But that was another National Press Club event where a whole bunch of
Yes,
people came
that
out.
was, oh gosh,
Who
the
hosted
name
that one?
escapes me. It
Oh,
was
that's not Greer. That was hosted by the
we
other.
covered this one before. Yeah,
We
I
did.
forgot the
You're
name
right.
of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he'll
So
we'll
Greer had nothing to do with the one in 2013 though.
13. Although it was in the same setting because it was the National Press Club, and that one had the former congressional members on a legal board.
Yes. And
But
so,
one of the other things I just wanted to point out, not to disrupt things here,
yep.
isn't the 13th of June the day that Ross Coulthart said he believes there's going to be another UFO hearing in the House?
We'll
Or was
see.
that the 12th?
That's the
Maybe it was
thing.
the
I
13th.
don't know if they actually locked in a date, but that's
No,
one of the things that I wanted to point out is
yeah,
that
it's right.
uh,
It's on the heel. If this is going to be preceding that by a day, it's actually kind of perfect.
this
But
is going on at the same time, potentially, or before it. And so it may get eyes to in Congress on the actual Disclosure Project 2.0, which in turn hopefully would spill over onto the House hearing that supposedly, allegedly, is going to happen in June as well. So, you know, a person I like to point out, a person that we had on the show, which is Lou Jimenez, he actually had a show called UCR, Unidentified Celebrity Review, where they did something called a Big Phone Home, which was the same sort of effort where it was a humanity focused effort that put everyone together, had them all contact Congress to try to get them to understand that we want this to come out. So anybody that is for disclosure truly and is for humanity should look at those efforts and applaud those efforts and try to
yes,
emulate those efforts as well.
yes. Stephen Bassett was the name of the gentleman who hosted the citizens' hearing for disclosure
That's what it was. The
in
citizens hearing for
2013.
disclosure. Yes, exactly.
And
They had
then
everyone there.
he had everyone there, and this the disclosure project that Stephen Greer did in 2001 was different. So now, I mean, so Stephen Greer is going to do it again, and yes, I applaud any effort like this in Washington, National Press Club. The more attention, the better. What Lou did, with the big phone home was also great, right? I mean, that's all along the lines of what needs to get done. Bring awareness, bring attention, and tell our representatives we're interested. To a certain degree, that's worked, right? We have
Right.
plenty of interested representatives and senators now, and we're they're doing their best in spite of the opposition. But it's a heck of a lot better than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? Nothing like this ever happened. So we have to look at the positives. At least it's on the radar now and people talk about it.
Exactly. And with that being said, is it an event or something that would draw attention from the remaining public who may not already be invested in the topic and just make them aware. So it's like public awareness at the same time.
Yes.
So I truly that's the reason why I wanted to kind of focus on this, because I think that I applaud this upcoming event. I think it's pretty important. And just like the gentleman who went to the most recent hearing. I forget the podcaster's name, but he actually was there and he got to interview Senator Gillibrand after the
Yes.
UFO hearing. So he
Yes, he
tells a
was on
story,
Chris Leto's channel. Yeah,
right? And
Chris Leto interviewed him, and I want to say Luke or something. Yeah, he's kind of an underrated podcaster. Really, really well spoken guy, though. I liked him on Chris's channel. And yeah, he got an audience after apparently the crowd went wild after the gavel struck to close the hearing. He waited patiently, and uh, Gillibrand gave him a nice audience, gave him a nice interview.
and he tells a story on how he actually just drove in from Tennessee. He was unsure that he would even be able to get in.
Yep.
And he gets there, and he, I guess he camped out the night before, but he actually said he was fourth in line. And this just shows that you too could actually, play a part in this and have a
Yes.
voice at one of these hearings. And it'd be recommended for you. If you're close enough, I'm way over in California, so it'd take forever to get there. I would go though if
Yep.
I had the opportunity. But people who, if you're in that general area, you should be there every time something happens if you're for disclosure. So
Yes.
but a couple things I wanted to point out. I mean, I did watch the documentary and they have some good stuff in there. We're going to cover the false flag part of this, but they had Tim Burchett on that show, on the documentary, and I just want to point out a couple things that he had said there. He had stated on this documentary, and I'm just going to paraphrase. This isn't exact quotes, but he stated basically that he had talked to people who have handled material, and also says that essentially the only way that this would come out is if that someone essentially is going to have to leak it. And it pretty much agrees that someone may have to go to jail, behind getting this word out. What do you think about that? What do you think about Burchett's comment?
He he seems discouraged. I don't know if you picked that up. He seems discouraged and a little
Yeah.
angry about the pace of progress here. And I think he's lost faith in the government in terms of Arrow and what their efforts within Congress are trying to attain. He's lost faith in that. So twice, I think, in the conversation, as you just pointed out, he says it's got to be a whistleblower, and they have to just throw caution to the wind and bring it out. and that's just the way it is. Honestly, to answer your question, I don't disagree with him. I think Arrow is going to keep their blinders on and just focus on the cases that they're told to investigate or that they have on their docket, and they're not venturing outside of that realm. As far as proof of crash retrieval programs and USAP programs and all of that sort of stuff, reverse engineering, somebody's just going to have to come out, bring something with them, be it video or hard evidence, and let it drop. And that's it. So that's what Tim Burchett's saying, and I don't disagree.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he is fired up as he normally is. You can tell that definitely in those closed hearings, I'm assuming behind the scenes, that he's just being discouraged. And I think it is more so the fact that he just understands that the truth won't come from just willingly come from any of these officials that have this knowledge. So when you hear, someone on that side of the conversation saying that the only way that this conversation moves forward, in his opinion, is someone's going to have to leak something, that's when where we're at in this, disclosure. Like, it's not going to happen from that end, and we've always said that. But then here you go, you have someone that's on that side who's in those secret meetings, and he agrees with that sentiment. So
that was
yeah.
at the end of last year too. I think the video, the documentary was filmed, I think, the end of last year, and obviously Tim Burchett has a beard now and he looks different. But I still feel he feels the same way. Recent interviews that he's given to various podcasters,
Yeah, same tone.
Project Unity, same tone. He's done a few, and he's always had the same tone. And you bring up an interesting point. I wonder if he did. I don't know what committee he's on, and if he can get into any of those closed hearings. My gut tells me he's seen something. Well, we know he's seen stuff. Ross Coulthard pointed that out. But I don't know if he's seen anything official in a closed hearing that he's now sworn to secrecy on that frustrates him even more, right? Let's say he knows there's evidence that the public can't get, he can't blurt it out because then he's in trouble, right? I don't know if he's in that position. I don't know what committee he's on. He may be on the Armed Services Committee in the House, like there is in the Senate, but I don't remember. And my point is I'm wondering if he has seen something official. Obviously, being shown a video is one thing, but if you go into a closed hearing and then somebody from the Pentagon shows you something that's pretty irrefutable, then that's even more, right? now you've got the proof and you just can't tell anybody.
Now, here's the thing. So, also in the documentary, if you recall, the guy on the screen here, Michael Schratt, he kind of expanded on that idea of the best way for this information to come out, and he said, paraphrasing again, that he thinks that we pretty much need an independent third party to mediate and verify the data, which I agree with, and also points out that at the start, like when these secret programs had originated, that essentially if they were set up unconstitutionally, then the oaths of secrecy that came from these secret projects would essentially be invalid, and that would give potentially a whistleblower room to be able to come out and not be held accountable for divulging what it was that they took part in. And what do you think about that aspect of it?
I mean, that's the case now, right? The law has been written that you can come out and tell whatever you want to tell, but I believe you have to do it to Congress. You have to do it to the committee. In other words, you're not allowed to whistleblow to the public. I don't think so. There's where the difference lies. You
Mm-hmm.
can, if you whistleblow to the public and you reveal classified information, that's still illegal, right? You can't do that. So I don't know what, in the end, what does that mean? It means that all of that we want to hear is maybe going on, may have gone on behind closed doors already, and we they won't release it because of, you know, sources and methods being classified again.
And see, I think other people have also said that. I mean, have said this. They definitely have said this. That if it was illegal, what it was that you had me sign into, then you can't legally hold me to breaking the agreement. Then,
I
so
follow what you're saying. I kind of ignored your. I didn't answer your question, and you're right. But do two wrongs make a right? Right.
well, I think that's at the end of the day. I mean, because he kind of expounds on that and kind of states that the whistleblowers would need to be assured that he believes that whistleblowers need to be assured that they'll have complete immunity in order for them to actually feel comfortable enough to let it all flow, to tell everything. And so essentially, I guess if this wasn't a legitimate agreement that was set up, or a constitutional agreement, I'll say, this wasn't a constitutional agreement that was above board, then they have a loophole or a window to be able to just tell everything that they know without worrying about being prosecuted. And I think that's an interesting angle, because Tim Burchett says that he believes the only way that this comes out is if a whistleblower leaks the information. So I would say, instead of leaking the information, uh, where you have a constitutional agreement, um, it's a little, if you're patriotic, it's a little iffy, and you're saying, okay, you shouldn't leak information. But then if that was an unconstitutional arrangement, then yeah, come out and leak everything. Then, you know what I mean? Tell everything that you know.
It's tough, right? Because then you basically are saying, well, because the whole program was non-constitutional and illegal from the get-go, you can't prosecute me. And or
True,
if we go
which
to
would be
court,
true.
we'd have, let's say you end up in a court hearing over this, or in some sort of a, if you're military, a court martial or something, you could end up, your defense is going to be proving that the program was illegal. Therefore, what I've done has been a service to the government, to the community, not a hindrance. But did you compromise national security along the way? There's going to be the other argument. So you're not going to come out smelling like a rose. You're going to end up with issues. You may end up having to do an Eric Snowden, right? You may have to drop it and then go and say goodbye to the United States of America, which is
It,
sad, right?
it is, because I
Because
don't
I
recommend
totally
that.
feel what you're saying. It's sad.
I don't actually recommend that you do that, but
Hmm.
at the same time, humanity would thank you for it. But
Hmm.
I definitely say, though, if the people who have locked you into these NDAs have broken the law, then they should be held accountable, obviously, for what they've done. And the only way that they would be is if those people were to come out and say what happened. So I guess that thing solves itself in the end. But as far as what Stephen Greer states, he mentioned, and I don't know because he didn't really go into detail on this, and I hope he does at a later time. But he states that there's a whistleblower suit. So I don't know what he meant by that. I don't know if he actually meant an actual lawsuit behind the scenes. But he states that the opportunity that we've been given right now with this whistleblower act from the 2023 NDAA, he thinks that that's a window that may close at some time. So he's like, while it's written in the law, essentially, uh, everyone should take advantage of that and come out and enjoy that protection and help try to move this thing forward, because he feels like, according to what he said, obviously paraphrasing again, that that window could close and then they will not even reconsider allowing whistleblowers to have any sort of protections. What do you think about that?
Well, you're good for at least a year, right? You're good till
Right.
the end of the NDA 2023 NDAA. So if you're going to do it, now's the time. He's not wrong. I mean, that law could change at the end of this year. So
Yeah, and it probably will change if you think about it. If you're on the government end of this, why would you want there to forever be a law that says that whistleblowers could come out when your whole thing is you want to keep secrets? So, this is obviously something I'm sure they don't like, and I'm sure they'll be targeting this next year, trying to have it removed. So, it's another reason why what Greer's doing with this Disclosure Project 2.0 is important, because it kind of brings light to the time that we're in, and the ability that we have to speak as the public, and for whistleblowers to speak up on behalf of humanity. But with that being said, there were some other things that they get into, and this is not just specific to this documentary. We've heard Greer talk in previous documentaries and on appearances about what they call a false flag operation. And I think you're pretty familiar with what that is. If not, I'll go ahead and read what the false flag operation is. So if you want to think about it, think of Project Blue Beam would be one of the things you look at. So Project Blue Beam, for those who may not know, is a theory that suggests that NASA, in collaboration with other organizations planning to implement a new world order through a staged simulated alien invasion or other major event that would be used to control the world's population. According to the theory, the project involves the use of advanced technologies such as holographic projections and mind control to create a false religious or supernatural event that would be presented as a revelation or divine intervention and would ultimately be used to establish a one world government or religion. The theory has been promoted by various theorists since the 90s and has been widely debunked by mainstream scientists, journalists, and researchers. Now, I had read that Werner von Braun actually gave a speech on this at one point in time. I guess it's someone had stated that that he divulged in them that he
Carol Rosin,
believed. Yeah, the lady. Okay,
the
yeah,
lady
that.
with the big hair.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
that's how we all remember her. She has like, I believe she's still alive. She had like the huge curly gray hair, and she
Is she,
was an assistant working with Werner von Braun, and he had told her this.
right. So, but it hasn't been confirmed. I guess it's only her word as far as that goes. But a lot of people cling on to that and believe that what is currently going on is part of some sort of false flag operation. So we're just going to look at what that could mean, and then you'll be able to decide for yourself if you believe that that's what's going on at this point here. So um, one of the things, obviously, this is John D'Souza, because he said some things about that kind of piqued my interest. He states that, and this is all paraphrasing, that he predicts that soon there will be no more near misses, which he means our pilots have been experiencing close, where these UAP almost collide with these UAPs. So he states that he predicts that there'll be no more near misses. It says a huge hostile action perpetrated by the government against potentially the military, like a battleship or a civilian airliner, even. That's crazy to even think about that. But and he states that this would be done in order to keep the interest and fear on the topic, with this being the beginning of a false flag operation. That's kind of heavy. I what do you think about that? Did you see that part, and what were your feelings about that?
I watched that twice. He came across, he came on real strong there. Personally, he's kind of implying like that I mean, some of the video that was being shown in parallel with what he was saying, he's implying that some of these craft, be it a tic tac or a sphere inside a cube or what have you, that we all know has been seen by the military, is going to hit something and bring it down, being it an airliner, a civilian airliner, or a military jet. That was what John D'Souza was implying. He's saying that he used some pretty strong language, like he's certain this is going to happen, or he's going to
Right.
guarantee that that's going to happen within 90 days. And now, I mean, I don't
Which
know
is
when
crazy to
which is when
say.
he was filmed. I think it's been
But
90
see,
days. But the
the,
point is he's saying it's going to happen, and this is going to be the part of the, this would be a false flag, not a false flag, but an event that would lead to the effects of anyone who would carry out a false flag, right? Where you've got everybody in terror, right? And now the world is going to be like, what are you going to do, government? How are you going to save us? We'll do
right.
whatever you want us to do.
Now he says that those tic tacs that would cause these incidents would be manned by us, essentially. Like these would be government craft, and that we would, though the government would go against its own military, or
Mm-hmm.
its own civilian public to
Yep.
get this false flag
That's a
going.
false flag right there, right? In other words, it's staged. So
You
now you
know,
stage a false flag, and you stage an accident, and you blame it on the alien.
yeah,
And
like
now
he
you've
said, that
got
came
the
on
world.
strong.
Yeah, as an aside, since we're allowed to give opinions on this channel, I
Hmm.
did watch John D'Souza in another podcast recently, and I know he's kind of new to the community, and yes, he's a retired FBI guy, and um, and that's fine and dandy. And I'm not saying he doesn't know what's going on the inside or doesn't have knowledge, but when I last saw him interviewed, he wasn't really up to speed on a lot of ufology and its history.
Hmm.
He was asked some questions where he didn't know the answers, or he didn't recount what was already known in the area. So he's got some learning to do. And I'm not saying he's a good guy or a bad guy. I just feel like he hadn't totally immersed himself in the whole field yet to know the past, the present, and what could be the future. So along those lines, what he's suggesting here seems a bit extreme. And if you look back, and you even go back to Werner von Braun, who was saying that this was going to happen, that was in the 70s, right?
Right.
So I don't, John's saying it's imminent, and that's where you and I don't agree. I don't
Yeah.
believe that this false flag is that imminent. And there's where we disagree. And, not to say that they wouldn't want to try to do that, but I don't think it's imminent.
Right. How would you be able, how would you double down on that, and then set a time frame of 90 days? I mean, 90 days will pass pretty soon here, and then if no false flag, then I can't, you kind of write yourself out of the
Yeah,
conversation.
that was a
So,
strong thing to say. Yeah.
and then he also mentioned something which I never heard this term before, but he mentioned a UAT, which would be considered an unidentified anomalous threat. Now, I don't know if that's an official thing. I don't think that it is actually,
I hadn't heard
and it
that
may be
before either.
something that goes along with the whole false flag conversation. That's my perception of that. But going with that, Uh, I saw Greer also talk about, because like I said, it's no secret. He's talked about this before, and he's probably said what I'm about to say here before as well. But he thinks that the physical injuries and trauma caused by the encounters are due to the man-made UFOs, part of a psyop to create fear, to use control. And he actually refers to or points out the Dr. Gary Nolan as being a person that's unknowingly used to push the trauma narrative. So, we saw this actual interview take place here where
Tucker
Gary Nolan
Carlson.
was Tucker Carlson, where he was outlining the effects of exposure to some of these anomalous crafts. And so Greer thinks that he's unknowingly being used as part of this false flag to pump fear into the community or to, out to the world, to kind of shore up the fact that these things are here to cause harm. What did you think about that?
Keep this slide up, because you've heard me say this before, Rob, and I'm going to point it out again for our viewers. Because this interview with Tucker Carlson, and I'm going to get to the answer to your question, happened last August, I believe, in 2022. Read the top of that slide. DOE Advanced Propulsion Gravity Research.
Right.
First of all, who ever said that the Department of Energy had an advanced propulsion gravity research department? What is that saying? What is advanced propulsion gravity research? It's anti-gravity. So the
Right.
DOE, the Department of Energy, right, the people in charge of the nukes, are researching anti-gravity, and someone in their team suffered this brain injury. Nobody talked about this. Was like the elephant in the room, my personal opinion, during the whole thing last August, and no one said a word about this. And I'm like, was Dr. Gary Nolan trying to send a subliminal message here? The Department of Energy has an advanced propulsion gravity research group. We didn't know that.
Right.
And yes, the fact that someone's getting injured as a result of exposure to this phenomenon or to this technology, be it ours, re-engineered, or perhaps reverse engineered alien technology that they're studying, that's obviously a big issue too. But just put that aside, this is almost confirmation once again, in my mind, that reverse engineering is going on, right? And there's your proof positive right there, unless that slide was made by Dr. Gary Nolan, or if he was given it to him. But getting back to your original question, this is one of the things that I don't agree with on Dr. Greer. Dr. Greer basically discounted this and discounted any of the other injuries that other people have suffered. And he kind of likened it, and Dr. Gary Nolan even said this too. Dr. Greer kind of said it was all clandestine military. It was what was the words he used? Kind of a military operation. And you know what he's referring to? He's referring to Havana syndrome, where people suffered brain injuries which started in the Cuban consulate, right, in the embassy. In Havana, thus the name Havana syndrome, where people were coming down with these injuries and these illnesses, where they were ringing in their ears and other hallucination, distortion, headaches, migraines, and all the other sorts of things. It turns out that they were being targeted with some sort of a directed energy weapon. It could have been something as simple as microwaves. Literally, if you put somebody in a microwave, you're going to do this to them. And you could beam a microwave at a building and screw people up inside.
Right.
Dr. Greer basically was saying all of this was that, which isn't true, because Dr. Gary Nolan specifically said he was dealing with people who had been exposed to the phenomenon, not people who were in Havana or in some other embassy around the world where Havana syndrome happened, which it did. It happened elsewhere besides Cuba. We've heard about that in the news. They don't talk about it much, but it's happened. These weren't those cases. And I don't agree with him discounting them. And what about the guy, John Burroughs, I think was his name, from
Yep.
Rendlesham Forest? He was
Yep.
brought up in this Tucker Carlson interview. Come on. He wasn't the
Yep. Yep.
victim of Havana syndrome in 1980. He touched an alien spacecraft and he got messed up. And Dr. Gary Nolan to talk with him about it. And he actually helped him at least getting his VA benefits as a result. So
Yeah.
I
There's a lot of funny business behind that.
there's funny business here, and you and I do not possess the proof that this injury issue is real or not real. We don't know that. I personally think there is something to it, and I don't think discounting it as some sort of a military operation like Havana syndrome is true. I don't agree with that.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, the reason why they try to do that, or the excuse that they use, is because there's radiation involved.
Absolutely.
So they go to lengths, and we'll kind of go, because we talked about this sighting on a previous show on Once Upon a Time in Ufology, and it was the Cass Landrum, right? So
Totally.
we totally showed this graphic before. And Greer, this is paraphrasing what he kind of said about the Cash Landrum incident. This is the false flag theory behind this not being an extraterrestrial encounter. He essentially states that the Cash Landrum, as an example, he says that was an actual ET craft, but it was being piloted by 4 humans. This apparently was a recovered craft, is what he's stating. And because they could not actually figure out its power source, the natural power source that it used, he makes an assumption that they had put a portable nuclear reactor on this ship as an alternate energy source. And this is and essentially this craft had a mishap, which is why Mrs. Cash and Miss Landrum were accidentally exposed to the radiation. I don't know, man. What do you think about that? I mean, I've looked at this, and the only, I didn't look because I didn't know that part of it, or I didn't know that that was part of the theory that they had a nuclear reactor on board. But the flame that came from beneath it was one of the reasons that people were saying that they thought that this was a man-made craft and not extraterrestrial. But what did you think about that?
I think, and first of all, what Dr. Greer said about them taking an alien spacecraft and fitting it with a nuclear engine because they couldn't figure out how to make its native propulsion system work, and then fly that around in an area that obviously is not a military base, outside of a military base, seems a bit extreme in my book. That's I don't know. No one had ever said that before. Now, what was the Cass Landrum incident? How did it go down? It went down exactly as we've all heard. And you and I, and I'll ask you a question, but I know what your answer is going to be. How many UFOs in history have had flames shooting out of them like a traditional rocket engine? Isn't that something that people never say, right?
I think Lonnie Zamora may have said that.
Lonnie Zamora had it on his too.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that alien spacecraft might not use a more traditional means of propulsion, but 99% of the time, the phenomenon, UAP, whatever you want to call it, UFOs, are silent, have no visible means of propulsion. The Cash Landrum incident had very visible means of propulsion. propulsion. It was making lots of noise. And oh, by the way, the late Stanton Friedman worked on nuclear rocket engines in the early 60s, and they made them work. The trouble is they were just so frigging dangerous to even the occupants of the rocket ship, because there's so much radiation blasting out everywhere. They chose not to use them. Obviously, you're not going to want to launch this thing from Cape Canaveral either and shower the Central Florida with radiation. That's not a good idea. And in outer space, you may be able to get away with a little more littering, so to speak, but even in Earth orbit, you wouldn't want to be doing that. So nuclear engines have had their day, and they're trying to go back to them now. I read about them a little bit. The Cash Landrum may have very well been that. Maybe it was a man-made craft. That's the reason all the military helicopters were around it. And yes, they got exposed to radiation because it probably had a nuclear engine in it. What Dr. Greer suggested, though, where it was an alien vehicle that we had fitted with a nuclear engine, that seems a little far-fetched to me. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. I just didn't see how that would make any sense at all, and how, like you said, how lethal doing something like that would be. So you're just gonna have a portable, like a generator, like a portable nuclear generator, essentially, that you're sitting next to. I mean, it's dangerous enough to sit next to a gas powered generator.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, a nuclear generator. So yeah, that kind of seemed kind of far fetched to me. I mean, and this is just, when we have our community, we have people that go out there and make these sorts of claims, and then they kind of sound kind of,
Yeah.
it makes it look kind of weird to who can take a claim like that seriously. Now, if you have the documents to show this, if you have some proof behind, but this just kind of a far out thing, I think, to reach for.
Yeah,
And
I would have been better if he had just said, "Hey, Cash Landrum was an alien reproduction vehicle, right? An ARV
right,
that, or a
because
nuclear rocket engine that we were testing in something that looks like a UR."
And that's been the general understanding of what that might have been. So I
Right.
mean, and I've never said, "Oh no, that can't be," or I've been middle of the road on that being either or. But when you make a claim like nuclear, it just
No, that was a step too far.
Now, with that being said, this kind of leans to, because so we painted, this is all the false flag. This is leading towards the man-made craft, the people who believe in false flags believe the TR-3B is a man-made craft that is responsible for a lot of sightings out there, and that this is not extraterrestrial. This is actually man-made craft that we've discovered. We've been able to harness the anti-gravity and create this craft. What are your thoughts on TR-3B? Do you think it's a thing, or what do you think about that?
Where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's been a lot of discussion about this, a lot of sightings. This is the classic black triangle that a lot of people see. Yes, I think there is something out there that possesses some sort of means of propulsion that is silent. I don't know if it's anti-gravity. It could be just extreme electromagnetic. We don't know this yet. And it is in the possession of the military. And yes, they fly it around and people sometimes see it. So yes, I think that is very, very plausible. If it is anti-gravity, awesome, because that means we've cracked that mystery, right? That would even be more so. So now they've taken it to that extreme step. Are they going to use this for their false flag? Could they use it for a false flag? Absolutely. But as you just pointed out, a lot of people are aware of this thing or believe it exists or have reason to believe it exists. So I think if this got caught doing something, or this crashed into or caused an airline accident, let's say, or some sort of military accident, would they be able to false flag it as being alien without a lot of people just stepping up and saying, "Hey, that's just a TR-3B. That's our stuff. That's not an alien spacecraft." That might happen. Maybe 20 years ago, that would definitely not have happened because nobody knew about this thing. But now people might come up and call them on that and say, "Hey, that's not a false flag. You flew your secret craft into something and caused an accident. That's not alien." I don't know. What do you think?
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, because what they're saying is because of if this is a thing, if the government have created something like this, then they're basically saying that this is what they would fly these over neighborhoods and over cities to kick off this false flag alien invasion. These would be the crafts that we would see, and these would actually be man-made and not extraterrestrial at all. So, as far as that goes, you hear Richard Dolan talk about people who have gone out to have a smoke at 2 or 3 in the morning and see these triangles floating over their, a few hundred feet over their neighborhoods. And I've never personally seen one. But if there's enough examples of it or reports of it, it has to be a thing. But I don't see, unless you're leaning into this false flag thing, I don't see, that would be the only way I would say, okay, yeah, maybe the government would consider doing that, flying over neighborhoods and just showing their craft if they're planning on doing some sort of false flag thing. But we're going to get into why it might make sense to do a false flag and then why it probably doesn't make sense. So, but first thing we want to do, so if it's a thing, these TR-3Bs or these Auroras or these vehicles that they talk about, then it's gonna start with the this is, I guess, a image TR-3B from the documentary, and obviously these are the guys who would be behind this. It takes this from our budget, and Greer makes a great, or I think it was Greer who made a great point about that, saying that when they invoice these things, like for a B-2 stealth bomber, they'll tell Congress that it costs $2 billion to do one of these when it really only costs 150 million, and then the rest of that money gets funneled into the black projects, which a lot of people call the shadow government, or say is controlled by the shadow government. So the companies that always get attached to these reverse engineering projects are not DARPA, but the Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman. So let me kind of talk about the Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and Lockheed Skunk Works and how they may tie into the money that's being funneled to them through the black projects through our budget. They have someone, I can't remember who said this, but it's thought that since the 1950s, there's been an estimated $8 to $10 trillion gone to black projects. And so who knows what they could have used that money to reverse engineer ET craft. Maybe,
Yeah.
possibly.
I think Greer mentioned that in the doc. He said,
Was it Greer?
yeah, he
Okay.
made an example, which I thought was good. He said the B-2 here cost $2 billion. What if it only cost 100 million and they took 1.9 billion and put it into the black projects?
Yeah, which is likely. I mean,
Very
like I said,
possible. I never thought of that before. So kudos to him there. Now, I don't think it costs 100 million, but maybe they did, right? So if the government gave the Northrop Grumman $2 billion for one airplane, and they built it for $1.5 billion. They could have funneled $500 million into some other project, is what Greer is suggesting. Which that is certainly within the realm of possibility.
Now, when you hear, actually, Terry Hall's in the building. We
Yes,
stop
he
to
is.
say hey to Terry Hall real quick here. Hey, Terry Hall, thank you for showing up here. Dogface, thank you for
Yes.
showing up here. Let me just stop for a minute. We kind of been running here. And Terry also, we all know the difference. We got film. He took himself of a 3B right there in Oregon, fairly close to. Got on a cell phone. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So that's the kind of stuff I'd like to see because it's a lot of people say, and I don't have opinion either way on it because I think it could be possible that, and we have a news story that was covered that kind of proves that some of this stuff is probably true. So that would be great. I'd love to see that, Terry. Let me go ahead and jump into this though with the Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and Lockheed Skunk Works. So for those who don't know, most people know exactly who these companies are. But Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and Lockheed Martin, Lockheed Skunk Works are three of the largest defense contractors in the United States with a long history of working on government black projects like the B-2 stealth bomber. These companies are responsible for developing some of the most advanced technologies used by the military, including aircraft, weapon systems, and intelligence gathering tools. The U.S. government has a long history on working on block projects with the classified military or intelligence operations that are not publicly disclosed. These projects are often funded through the black budget, a portion of the federal budget that is allocated to classified programs. The black budget is estimated to be several $billion each year and is used to fund a variety of projects, including those related to defense, intelligence, and national security. Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and Lockheed Skunk Works are all major players in the defense industry and have a long history of working on black projects. Raytheon is a leading defense contractor that specializes in a range of technologies, including missile defense systems, radar systems, and cybersecurity. Northrop Grumman is another major defense contractor that is involved in a range of projects, including aircraft, unmanned systems, and defense electronics. Lockheed Skunk Works is a division of Lockheed Martin that specializes in advanced technologies, including aircraft, hypersonic weapons, and stealth technology. These companies have all worked on a range of black projects for the U.S. government, including those related to defense, intelligence, and national security. For example, Raytheon has worked on the development of advanced radar systems for the U.S. military, while Northrop Grumman has developed unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, and advanced weapons systems. And they show that Lockheed Skunk Works is perhaps best known for its work on the development of the F-117 Nighthawk, the first stealth aircraft used by the military. The U.S. government funds these black budgets. The U.S. government funds these black budgets through the black budget, which is allocated by Congress and overseen by the Department of Defense and other intelligence agencies. The budget is used to fund a range of classified programs, including those related to research and development, or R&D, as well as those related to operations and maintenance. So we know these companies are the ones that, if they're reverse engineering, that these are the companies that are probably taking those or handling those projects. So one thing I wanted to do, because we're going to get into some questions after this, there was a video that I'd found actually that was from about 8 years ago. It was a news story. And in this news story, they show something pretty crazy. And when I saw this, I was like, wow, this is okay. So let's check it out.
What's that in the sky over West Texas? What's that in the sky over Kansas?
That is the strangest thing I've seen as far as aviation.
3-1, flight runway heading, cleared for takeoff.
Every day at an airport restaurant in Amarillo, a motley crew of airplane buffs sits down and looks up.
They are aviation junkies. They love it.
And they see things you can't see anywhere else. Military aircraft cruise over Amarillo like sharks looking for bait fish.
If you're flying east-west or north-south across the United States, you probably fly over Amarillo.
A group that might be called the Interceptor Club watches everything military that flies over. But back in March, they spotted 3 craft they'd never seen before, about 6 miles up.
We had captured something completely unique.
A triangle, like a stealth bomber, but not a stealth bomber.
The back edge was flat, like a Dorito. It wasn't jagged.
A few weeks later, the same shape was snapped by another spotter in Kansas.
This is when we first saw it, flying in formation from the back side of the airport.
Steve Douglas is something between an aircraft enthusiast and a fanatic. He's sitting in what he jokingly calls Kitchcom, a nook of his kitchen crammed with electronic gear to monitor aircraft traffic. He's got a special antenna to pick up satellite transmissions.
On this side, it's high-tech and wires and NORAD. On that side, it's blenders and microwave ovens and dishwashers and food.
On the day the mystery planes were spotted, Douglas recorded air traffic controllers giving the aircraft a clear lane through the sky. The Air Force confirms nothing. Now he suspects the triangular shape may be a stealth transport.
You could put a dozen or so Navy SEALs in, fly them over Pakistan or Afghanistan or whatever stand, and have them bail out the back or be inserted in some way without an adversary being any the wiser.
At the Old English Fieldhouse Diner, waitress Erin Williamson has become one of the group.
Every day, at least 4 or 5 days a week, they watch the planes, take pictures. They'll let us know if there's an important or cool-looking plane coming in.
The patches on the wall show all the military pilots who've stopped for lunch, along with a movie star or 2. On this day, 6 Air Force trainers landed, a special ops plane from a nearby airbase buzzed, 3 Air Force tankers passed at 6 miles high. No Dorito, but eyes are peeled.
Yeah. So,
love it.
With that being said, they're seeing things up there. I mean, that was obviously a photographed or videotaped craft that was up there. It was triangle. It looked like it was leaving some sort of trail, so I would not assume that would be anti-gravity. From what I understand from the ET craft, they're supposedly surrounded by like a vacuum, which allows them to be transmedium craft. So that was more likely, a craft that had known means of propulsion, I would think. It could be potentially like the Aurora. What do you think about that, Mattel?
Here's first off, how can you not believe a bunch of fanatics like that? These guys, this is where these guys don't make this stuff up. And here's the difference between what they're doing and what we do. They're looking up all the time because they are fanatical about their military aircraft, and God bless them, right? I think it's a riot. I think it's funny. I think it's entertaining, but I also say good for them. If you're into military aircraft and you live near a military base and you want to hang out with your friends and take pictures all day, awesome. So in my personal opinion, their film footage is as true gets. And so what they pictured is definitely not a B-2. I just looked at a picture of a B-21, which was the recent stealth bomber that came out. And that has a jagged back as well. So maybe it is a TR-3B. Now, to your point you just made, just to bring in a little science and engineering, as I always like to do, you can make a contrail. This isn't a chemitrail. You can make a contrail if for some reason you have, let's say you're being propelled by something other than a jet engine. If you just take a wing of a plane with no engine and you fly it at 500 miles an hour through the right atmospheric condition, you'll get water condensation. You'll basically make a cloud, right? You make a cloud because of the low pressure on the top of the wing. The water condenses. So if these were TR-3Bs, let's say, and being propelled by something other than a jet engine, they could still make contrails. Obviously, they're flying in our atmosphere. Now, we have heard that ET craft can somehow avoid doing all of that, right? They don't make sonic booms. They don't affect the air around them at all, as they seemingly slice through our atmosphere without causing any disturbance. Have we been able to figure out how to do that yet? Maybe not. So if but clearly these were some sort of a tech craft that no one has ever seen before, but these guys caught it. And I totally believe their story, because they're looking up all the time and they know their stuff. They probably have contests as to who can identify which jet the fastest, right? So if they say they don't know what it is, it doesn't exist in any known aircraft listing that they're aware of.
Well, I mean, I think what we can say for sure is I would definitely lean to say that wasn't an extraterrestrial vehicle that they filmed there, that was some sort of top secret government craft. So whatever that thing was, I believe was definitely man-made. And it's going to be exciting to see what that actually ends up being. But at the same time, you can obviously tell by the stealth bombers that were developed back in the 80s and came out for the Gulf War. You can, and with this craft that they showed there, you can tell that we are designing these after the ET craft. You could definitely see where those ideas most likely came from what we've seen, or what's been reported to be seen in the sky. So what does that mean? Does that shore up the whole false flag thing? Does it say okay, they are definitely creating craft that look like ET craft, and maybe that's where they're going with it? That's one of the arguments, I guess, for the whole false flag thing. But a couple things I want to ask you off of that. I mean, do you like what do you think? So we know what they say the purpose of the false flag is, but where do you see it being a beneficial thing, or a reason that they would actually want to do this?
This is, if going back to the video, the documentary, since that's what we're talking about here, Dr. Greer says that the reason is they want world domination. They want a one world government, and they want the new democracy, he called it. And let's break that down a little bit. So this is the perceived motivation for why you would do a false flag. So let's look at previous controversial situations where there have been theories, call them conspiracy theories, that may have also been a false flag. The one that everybody knows and loves is 9/11, right? So if you look at 9/11, and if you want to argue that that was a false flag to rally the country around its military and its president in order to go attack some other country, well, you could say it worked pretty darn well, right? Because after 9/11, as you well may remember, everybody and their brother we were all flying our American flags, and we were all one people, and we all got along for once, because we had been attacked from the outside and we were going to go kick ass, right? At this point. And we were all in favor of whatever it took to do that, without a whole lot of questions asked. So there is the thinking behind the false flag, where you can get the people to come get behind your plan, whether it's right or wrong, true or false, and you've basically put them under your control. And so the thinking behind a new false flag is along the same lines, but maybe they want it more worldwide, right? Where it's not a country of one or two countries being attacked. It would be like multiple, I guess they would have to do multiple incidences or something where like a whole bunch of people's planes were taken down by what would they're going to call ETs. And then if that happens, then the whole world would be rallied around whomever, the oligarchs, the elite, the Bilderbergs, whatever you want to call it, the upper echelon who were in charge of the world as we know it. And we're going to do whatever it is they want. We're going to agree with whatever it is they want to do. So that is the purpose of a false flag, right? To get everybody to rally behind your cause, your as I'm talking government, be it state or world, regardless of its legitimacy. And in the case of a false flag, you can already say it's illegitimate, right? Because if it is false and they made this whole incident up to get this rallying effort going, then we're all being misled. Now, and this, I don't, you may want to follow this up later, but I'm going to say, I'll just throw the question out and stop talking. Is that going to happen now? I mean, this is the why we'd want to do a false flag. Is this on the menu for the world at this time at this particular time in our lives and in the state of the world? I don't know. Why would you want to do that, right? What don't you have already?
Right.
So this is a tough one. I mean, it's a tough one.
I for one, I mean, and we're gonna kind of get into some definitive why it's good, why it's not, but just the way I feel is I don't really, I mean, why fake an alien invasion if they're actually already here and they're already in our skies? I mean, what would be the real purpose of that? It appears that they want to stay so far away from confirming that these things are here and that they're real. So for them to take the route of a false flag would just pretty much say aliens are here. So if that's what they're going to do, then why would they be fighting so hard to keep a secret and say that this is not possible and kind of go that whole route?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's true. You if they use the alien false flag, then they've done disclosure, right? And
right.
Is that actually going to help or hurt their cause? Could hurt it.
I would think it would. I mean, I think it would be. I don't think you can anticipate the results. You know what I mean? And it's and why fight so hard? So you go 75 years of saying, no, it's not possible. No, they could never be here. No, they're not here. These are just, prosaic explanations for these things we're seeing. And then you just turn around and say, no, alien invasion. I don't think it doesn't make sense.
No.
So, but like you pointed to, I guess the one of the purposes is the one world government that they say that the false flag would be trying to implement globalization. I mean, which kind of the UN would be the world's government. So we already have that. So why would it make sense for one country who has agreed to be part of a United Nations to supersede that to try to become the government of the world? It doesn't make sense. So a lot of this stuff in ufology is like common sense. You know what I mean? So you don't really have to think too hard. It's just use your common sense on a lot of this stuff, and I think you'll answer a lot of your own questions. But another question I had for you, and I'll answer as well. What would the government? Do you think the government would really test out reverse engineer craft on the public and the military? And if you believe so, I mean, whether which way you lean on that, why would that be the case?
It's a good question. We should also perhaps poll our audience too, as I'm curious what they think. But
Yeah.
as well as your opinion and my opinion on this, I've often thought of that. Because this has been brought up more than once, and it started to get brought up during the famed Tic Tac incident and David Fravor. Why would it makes sense to me from a military standpoint to spring it on your best military pilots, what have you, right? If they're pilots or they're sailors or they're Marines or they're Army people, you would want to get a reaction of something and see how they would try to defend against it. To get the best unbiased test would be to just surprise somebody with it, right? Bring it on and don't tell anyone it's coming. Like when they do war games, they know something's coming. They've got like a bad guy or a group of planes that's playing the bad guys, and they have to do whatever it is as part of their mission to intercept and what have you. But to
Right.
bring out some sort of reverse engineered tech or alien reproduction tech and spring it on the military unannounced in order to see what sort of reaction they get, it's actually not a bad idea if you really want to gauge the effectivity of the thing, right? It's totally you're going to get an unbiased opinion because everybody's going to be in shock and they're going to try to figure out what to do. Um, so I don't think that that's completely out of the question.
Now, the way I feel about that is with, let's just talk about Chinese balloon situation. So it's
Mm,
obvious that since the 40s, 30s, I'm sure there's been spying going on both ways. So you have secret agents in every country. I'm sure China has some here, Russia does as well. So why would you why would you test out craft on the public or put them in a position where uh, the data could be captured by those said spies and then translated back to their home countries? It wouldn't really, to me, it would make sense. Maybe someone could explain why it would make sense, but it wouldn't make sense to show your cards. I mean, maybe it fools the public, but if a spy is good at their job, they already have the intel that there's something secret or some sort of secret project,
mm.
depending on how deeply they've infiltrated, and so it would then say, okay, well, here's the secret project, and then it would be just I don't see that as being a plausible thing. I mean, I think that they would keep that as top secret as possible. Then you have those scenarios where the pilots, like David Fravor, for instance. So if that's our tech, Fravor's on every talk show out there talking about what he saw and giving descriptions on what he saw. So if this was actual government tech, I don't think they would want that to happen.
Mm.
um it just doesn't make sense. So what, I don't know.
It's, I agree with you. And this is the point counterpoint here. I think from a military standpoint, it would give you a great test. But from a military standpoint, you're going to show your hand, is your point.
Yeah.
So why do either? Why do it? And Terry brings up a valid point. I mean, people were significantly affected by this. Kevin Day, who was the radar operator, to this day is not the same person he was then because it deeply affected him because that's the whole denial that something was happening and the cover up of the government saying that nothing happened that day and he was witness to it. That's difficult to, you're not, there's no vindication there and he struggles with that. And I don't blame him. I would be struggling with it too. You don't get anyone to prove that what you saw is real. Everybody thinks you're a crackpot, or you think you're a crackpot, or even if you aren't being perceived in that way, you always wonder what people think about you, because nothing
Right.
is ever proven. So it's hurtful to people. Obviously, the government, hate to say it, doesn't really care too much about the well-being of all of its citizens and its military. We know that they'll do things. Heck, they send their military in harm's way all day, every day. That's what they're supposed to do. But yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, you wonder, yeah, because if it does show the cards, then now all of a sudden your tic tac, if that was, let's say, your tech is revealed, and now China and Russia know, well, Americans got some sort of new thing. Let's go check it out, because we need to find out what they got.
Exactly. Exactly. It just doesn't make sense. But at the same time, just to kind of close out this part of it, I have something on why the false flag theory could be plausible, or why false flag theory just doesn't make sense. So the idea of a false flag UFO invasion where the government stages a fake extraterrestrial attack or visitation has been a popular conspiracy theory for many years. While there is no solid evidence to support the idea that such event has ever occurred, some people believe that it's possible for the government to create the false flag, like we talked about, for a number of reasons. And according to this, it states that one possible reason, and I think we agree with this, why the government might stage or agree with the sentiment. We talked about this. Might state a false flag UFO invasion is to create a sense of fear and urgency among the public, which is essentially what Greer is stating. By presenting a fake terrestrial threat, the government could encourage people to support the increased military spending and tighter controls on the civil liberties. This would allow the government to consolidate its power and control over population while diverting attention away from domestic issues and conflicts. Another possible reason why the government might say useful false flag UFO invasion is to distract the public from a major event or crisis. For example, if there was a major economic recession or political scandal, the government could create a fake UFO invasion to distract people from the issue and to create a sense of national unity against a common enemy. However, there are also several reasons why a false flag UFO invasion would not be practical. Firstly, creating a convincing fake UFO invasion would require a significant amount of resources and advanced technology, which would be difficult to keep secret and would require the involvement of a large number of people. Secondly, such an event could have unpredictable consequences, both domestically and internationally, which would make it difficult for the government to control the outcome. Furthermore, staging a false flag UFO invasion would require a significant amount of coordination and planning, which would increase the likelihood of leaks and exposure. In today's digital age, it's difficult to keep secrets for long periods of time, and any evidence of a false flag UFO invasion will likely be quickly discovered and disseminated. So, both sides of the coin. I agree with that. Actually, I agree with, it would take a huge amount of coordination for you to do that, and the secret not be leaked out. I just don't see that being possible. Or if it was launched, I think we would immediately see what it was for, you see it for what it was. What do you think about that?
I have to agree with you. One of the things that I've seen here going on, there's the two camps, and not to cite who's fighting against who, but you'll notice Dr. Greer is against the threat narrative. And although he's for the false flag narrative, and the people whom he disagrees with, who he pictured in his documentary that we're going over, we don't need to drop any names here, may have tended to be more for the threat narrative. So it's like, which one do you want? Do you want the threat? Do you want the false flag? The false flag can only happen if there is really a threat, or a perceived threat. So to answer your question, yeah, it's not going to be easy to pull this off. It's easy to pull off a fake attack from another country, right? You can do that. Like let's say 9/11. I'm not going to go whether or not that was a false flag or not. We don't want to go there because a lot of people died and that's not a good thing. But if you want a false flag and attack from another country, that is something you could probably do and make it look convincing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas false flagging an alien invasion, as you just pointed out, is going to be a tall order. And will it create what you ultimately want in the end? It would have to be so well orchestrated that it would be like Project Bluebeam, which is there'd have to be projecting holographic things in the sky that have convinces everyone's that we're under attack. And I don't know if we can do that yet. So from a practical standpoint, false flagging a UFO invasion or an attack from extraterrestrials, I don't think we can pull that off right now. And if you did, it's going to create a lot more questions than it is going to get you to your ultimate end of having a one world government, if that's what you're trying to do. So I agree with you. I think this is, I think we're those who are promoting this may be wasting their time. We need to be focused more on getting to the bottom of what we do know and we do have, and go from there. I don't know what's your thoughts.
Agreed. This is the reason why I wanted to point out the false flag, because in our community, in the ufology, it's a big part of, I guess, a conspiracy theory within ufology as far as what the actual intent is for the government going forward. And I've just listened to the argument, you have Billy Carson and a lot of different people that actually also co-sign on that theory.
Right. They
And
were all in the documentary as well. Yes.
And they on their individual platforms they speak about this. So it's
Yes.
just I just feel like make it make sense. If it's presented in a way that would make sense. And I just don't think that it has been presented in that way as of yet, where it just, would be something that people should invest a lot of thought into or worry about. I think the false flag is a false flag. You know what I mean? I think it's a
Good point.
situation where
Yes.
it's technically a distraction from where we need to focus our energy and resources in trying to actually get to where we're going here and get what we know is in the sky, to get that to be validated within our community. So
Agreed.
with that being said, I'll go ahead and go into our next segment here, which is going to be Once Upon a Time Ufology. And like I said, we've been talking about, I don't hold the false flag thing against Greer. I mean, that's just something that he believes, and that's okay. But at the same time, we should be able to talk about it and see why it makes sense and why it doesn't. But one thing that I definitely agree with is the Disclosure 2.0, what he's doing. And let me go ahead and get us into this. This would be our Once Upon a Time in Ufology. And for this, we're going to do the Disclosure Project 1.0 from 2001. So, like I stated, there were a lot of people there. You see there, Mr. John Maynard, Clifford Stone, U.S. Army. It was Colonel Philip Corso, John Callahan, Dr. Robert Wood. So a little background on the Disclosure Project for a lot of people who don't know is that its Disclosure Project was a press conference and event held on May 9th, 2001 at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., which is, by the way, where it's going to be held again here next month. Was organized by Dr. Stephen M. Greer, an American retired physician, ufologist, and founder of the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, or CSETI, and the Disclosure Project. Now, the individuals that I mentioned already, in addition to those individuals, there were several other military and government officials who gave testimony at the event, including pilots, air traffic controllers, and radar operators. Now, the purpose of the event was to urge the U.S. government to disclose any information it may have about UFO sightings and extraterrestrial encounters, and to call for greater transparency and accountability in the government dealings with these issues. The Disclosure Project has continued to advocate for UFO disclosure in the years since the 2001 event. So, once again, it's a situation where you have whatever you think about Greer, he's taking his time and his efforts to put together something that I feel like is for the benefit of humanity. And that's what we focus on here. Anything pro-humanity. I don't care what else you've done in your past or what else you've been accused of. If you've done something to progress humanity or for the benefit of humanity, then that's what we praise you for. That's what we want to highlight. And that's what we're doing here today. So what do you think about this, Mateo?
It's a great one to call back, and yes, time for an encore performance.
Yep.
Speaking of which, I saw the announcement you put up earlier as a slide. Did you get any information or find anything about who he's going to have this time in this event?
He mentions that there's going to be a lot of people. And he didn't really get any information. I tried to do that. I went to the website actually. And I didn't get anything from it. But
maybe he didn't announce it yet.
Yeah, he mentions there's going to be just a long list of people there, important people to the conversation. So I believe he stated that it's going to be live streamed as well. So I would recommend, if you can't be there in person, definitely tune in because this is what we should be asking for if we're going to have these Senate hearings. This is the what's going to be put together on the day it airs is actually June 12th. So it's the whole weekend that they're doing things, but the actual gathering is on the 12th. So this is what the Congress, I'm hoping they see this and then understand how they should be setting up their hearings, because as you saw with Kirkpatrick and Gillibrand, there was no one there. No one was interested. It was like a ghost town. They didn't have the right. They never have the right people that they call in to these hearings. So when you see who Greer puts together, should give you an idea of the type of people you should be calling in to give you testimony or information on what's going on in this subject. So with that being said, we're going to also get into our science fiction to science facts. And what we'll be doing for that, the movie edition, we're going to go with Minority Reports. Tom Cruise. It's, hopefully with all the AI and, the whole worry about where that's going, this might be where we're headed as far as the type of future where AI is able to predict what it is that we're going to do next and then hold us accountable. So if you've seen this movie, definitely watch it again, and knowing what you know now about where AI is at this point and where it could be if we just allow it to continue to develop, we may actually end up where this movie takes place. It's pretty scary thought. What do you think about this movie, Mattel?
I love it. It's been you always bring up great ones, Rob. I love it because I like watching old movies, and every one that you bring up here, the reason you're bringing it up is because if you watch it now, given what's happened since it was originally released, you're going to see it through a completely different lens. And this is another case in point. I mean, we did a show about AI, and we've talked about it more than once. And recently, there's been a lot of press. In fact, I don't know if you saw it, but the guy who left Google, who was originally responsible for their AI, did an interview on PBS NewsHour. I think it was Friday, this past Friday, uh, 2 days ago, and he basically, he was sounding the concern alarm too. And so this movie is a great example of where it can go awry, right? And it all depends on what we humans choose to program into it. And
Yeah.
therein lies the danger, because not everyone has the greater good of humanity at heart. A lot of people are promoting, and they're going to do things for power, money, all of the things that we all know drives a lot of bad behavior in humanity that we haven't evolved ourselves out of yet, probably won't for a long time to come.
No.
So great movie. I gotta watch it again, because I think I only saw it once, and it was a great movie because it was a real good mind bender, right? When you were watching it, and it was like, oh man, how the heck is he going to get out of this mess?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now that's why I wanted to go ahead and position this in a way where where it actually ties into what's going on today. And
Yes.
let me just give you a synopsis of Minority Report if you haven't seen it. It's no spoilers, but it's another film. And this is another thing. If you notice, and this wasn't done intentionally, but a lot of the movies that end up being picked for science fiction to science fact are directed by Steven Spielberg. And so is this. So the movie is set in the future where the police use new technology to predict crimes before they happen and arrest the potential criminals before they commit their offenses. Now, Tom Cruise, the star of the movie, plays John Anderton, a police officer who is the head of the pre-crime unit, which is responsible for using this technology to prevent crime. However, when the system predicts that Anderton himself will commit a murder in the future, he goes on the run and begins to question the morality of the pre-crime system, which parallels with what we're looking at today. As Anderton tries to clear his name and uncover the truth about the pre-crime system, he is pursued by his former colleagues and must evade them, while also investigating the mysterious circumstances surrounding this predicted crime. The movie explores themes of free will, determinism, and the dangers of relying too heavily on technology for law enforcement. It features impressive visual effects and a tense and suspenseful plot that will keep you on the edge of your seats. So, that being science fiction to science fact, we're going to go ahead and get out of that. We're going to keep the music playing, though, because you have something. Let's go ahead and get out of here. And I guess you can tell us what it is that you have and go ahead and go from there.
Me?
Yep.
What do I have?
Did you get the did you see the memo?
Oh, the email.
Yeah.
Oh, with the video from from Terry? No, I haven't watched it yet.
We got the thumbs up to show it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
good. Go for it then. Are you going to bring it up?
No, I can't show it from my end. It's a .mov. Yeah.
Oh,
so I
all right.
sent it to you.
Yes. Hold on. Give me a sec here. I was just writing Terry a quick response to his text. Let me pull this thing out and see if I can bring it up and share it.
Yep.
I do have QuickTime, which is what we need, right?
Exactly.
So stand by. Sorry, I'm.
Take your time. We've been
No
here
worries,
for a
man.
minute. Everybody's relaxed. We're good.
No, I didn't know we were gonna do that. Hold on a second, it's coming up. Oh, this is pretty cool looking. So this is to preface this. This I guess is Terry Hall and our good buddy Tim Senor were, I guess, this is something they filmed last year in the Uinta Basin. So let me see if we can. I'll share the screen since you don't have the player, and grab it, and it should be
Right there. Okay.
showing now. There we go. And
Yeah,
let me see if I can make it a little bigger, maybe. Oh, you made it bigger. That's good.
Yep.
All right, so it looks like it's, I don't know how long it is, but I'm going to play it, and we'll see what it does. We'll see what it looks like. Oh, here we go. We see a Tic Tac.
Wow. Yikes. What in the world is that? And I just want to say while this is playing, this wasn't captured by any government camera. This wasn't captured by, a group who has an agenda to hold information like this back. This is being presented by boots on the ground, grassroots individual just like you and me. This is a member
Right.
of humanity who has captured something and is just willing to show the information. And we need more of this.
Yes. Yeah, I had seen this footage maybe 6 months ago, and it's very unexplained.
A step further.
This is pretty raw, so we can't, they had lost it at this point, and then they can zoom in.
Yeah.
Oh, there! I think I see it again. It's hard to see, and then when they zoom it out.
You have to rewind that. If it doesn't come back in,
Yeah,
you
we'll
want
go back
see
to
that
where
again. Yeah.
Yeah, a satellite or a space station does not look like that from the ground. Those
Yeah.
are points of light because they're so far away.
Yeah.
This was big.
I mean, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, I'm just shocked by what I'm looking at. I guess the word disappeared over the ridge.
Yeah, now it's going to go. The video is almost done, but I can pause it and bring it back to where it kind of disappeared the first time. See if we can find that. Reporting live. Oh, from the Uinta Basin. All right, yeah. Let me see if I can drag this back to where we were zoomed in here. Yeah, and then I think it went out of focus, and that's when they lost it. Yeah. Okay, there it is. Yeah, what it is his camera kept focusing on the ridge, I think. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It is definitely cool.
I mean, it doesn't look like a plane. It could be, but I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't. This doesn't look like a. I mean, let's just go back to where the original here. I mean, that just does not look like a plane. I I mean, in there it was in decent focus, I believe. Right?
I mean, and I think the reason why he's putting this out here is to be vetted. I mean, you know, there's some people I've seen that use different filters to kind of, you know, zone in on what it is they're looking at. But man, that shot right there,
That
where you
doesn't
have
look
it
like an
frozen.
airplane.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I filmed some stuff and it, you know, just not the exact same shape, but I'm just looking at the black on the top and the bottom. I mean, that's when I see that, that kind of reminds me of the things that I filmed. I mean, it's pretty strange actually looking at that. Do you see that? The black at the top and the bottom?
Yeah, I do see a little bit. We'd have to get some video editing software in here in order to grab and blow that up, you know, like our good buddy Tom King has, which he's done with his videos, where he has this software that allows you to pull up, grab a square of a video and show the blow up. And then you get those colors that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see. But yeah, no, I mean, this is
interesting video.
weird. Yeah, no.
So yeah, anybody out there, if you're, you know, go ahead and take a look at this, do your filters on it, vet it, you know, let us know what you think about it. Leave comments and let us know. But that is freaking awesome. So with that being said, we can actually get ready to get up out of here. And let's see. So let me close out actually science fiction to science fact. And then get us with the take home music. So, all right. So awesome, actually.
Another great
show.
show.
Glad that Terry was actually able to share that with us today. Just adds to what it is that what our mission is, to present, to show that you can be a regular person and present your information. Everyone's sighting counts. The information that we all have as a collective, as humanity, is going to supersede anything that the government could have ever captured or could even ever admit to. Like, we already know what it is that's out there. We have footage like this. We have experiences from experiencers. We have data that's being collected right now, like with Mateo is Cosmic Watch and Tom King and the, you know, Tim Senor and what they're doing with that effort. So anyone can do it. We can do it. We can bring disclosure. We will bring disclosure. Once they see that we have this thing rolling and that we are actually, they're going to want to come with the data. We're not going to even want to hear it at that point because we're already bringing disclosure for ourselves.
Yes.
So what's going on, Mateo? You got anything you want to say? Obviously, we're going to thank everybody for coming through.
Yes. No,
Terry
another
Hall,
great show,
Rob.
I wanted to say kudos to you again. Great prep, a great topic. I was glad to get the video and check it out, and so I can contribute here. It was definitely a worthy watch. I think it puts a lot of what we're all doing into better perspective, right or wrong, and, you know, depending on where beliefs are. But as we've said at the beginning of the show here, we're not here to judge. We're here to just present and think about it and talk it through. And it was a great topic. So good stuff.
And there should be a lot more of that in ufology, and I just want to. And we've always vowed to kind of walk the middle of the road,
Yes.
and like I said, we've always said we'll lean either way depending on the evidence.
Yes.
And I think that's where everyone in ufology, that's where you should be at. Go back and watch the skeptical versus non-skeptical logic video. Go back and watch that. See where you fall in this, because in order for us to advance this conversation, we all need to be in that open-minded general area so we can bounce ideas off each other. I love to hear skeptic opinions, and then I love to present evidence that shows why you should probably rethink that, or what, and vice versa. So that creates a good, fruitful conversation.
Yes. Till we have that irrefutable evidence that we're all working to gain on our own, as you pointed out, and Terry pointed it out in the chat as well, we really don't have the answer. So until then, we have to stay open-minded. Once we get it, then we can let the world know.
And with that, you see it says on the banner, thanks for joining the conversation. We appreciate everyone that's come by. We appreciate everyone on Team Rewatch. This has been Mateo, the engineer at the Social Dig. Myself, Mr. Rob G. Thanks for coming by, guys. Take care.